What's up, everyone? Stella Chung here, and today we're going to be talking about Catalyst, the first playable transgender woman in Apex Legends, and what it means to respawn to bring her to life. I'm joined by Meli Grant, Catalyst's voice actress, Ashley Reed, narrative lead, and Mirim Lee, 3D character artist. Hello, everyone. It's so good to see you all.
Hello. Good to see you, too.
Meli, what was it like voicing Catalyst?
Ooh, I don't know if I've ever played a character that I've connected with more. There are so many fun little parallels that we've discovered as kind of we were recording the character. Just crossover between like the Venn diagram of Catalyst's sense of humor and her sort of like wry, sort of snarky energy and things that I can, relate to in my life. It was an incredibly collaborative process. So as we were, going session by session, which was a lot of sessions, we were recording maybe twice a week, 4 hours a day for like multiple months. It really started to feel like we were sort of creating this together. And as someone who got my start in anime, where we're often, recreating a production in English, this is, maybe not the first, but one of the very first, and certainly the biggest project I've worked on, where I've been a part of discovering and creating a character from the ground up, and that was incredibly exciting.
Yeah, so you mentioned how you have so many similarities with Catalyst, so I have to ask, how much of Catalyst's personality is actually your own?
That's a great question. That might be a question for Ashley, because when we first got the audition sides, I had a very different idea of what I thought they were looking to create with Catalyst. The original audition sides had multiple examples of kind of character prototypes, and they were both, every single one of them was English, like had an English accent. And so I remember writing my agent and saying, are they looking for like a Maleficent or some kind of English character? And the agent wrote back saying, oh yeah, I spoke to the casting director. They said, don't worry about it. Do whatever you're comfortable with. And so I did the smart thing and immediately overthought that. So the original audition was totally different. It was very much like, this is going to be terrible because I haven't done this in a while, but like, Zamathi's in retrograde. That's bad news for them. And then, thank goodness, it was enough to get me into the room for a callback. And at that callback, whether it happened organically or whether they were continuing to discover the character, in the weeks between my audition and the callback, the director, Phil, steered me right into the center of my comfort zone. And I left that callback so confident because I hadn't expected that walking in. And next thing I know, I'm performing a character that kind of is just instinctual. It was exciting, but it was also terrifying because the ones that you feel like you have the biggest shot of nailing are usually the ones you don't get. So I'm like, that felt great. Oh no, I'm doomed.
Okay, so obviously Catalyst has gone through a few changes. So Mirim, I'm curious, how was Catalyst design developed the way it was? And did that change once Meli was added?
I would say it did some changes, but we were already considering different options, and then we had a lot of flexibility during the process. But in the early stage, I still remember the moments that I was searching for the more information, and then I had a lot of things to learn. The same with every other characters. But in the same time, I was searching for more hints for what kind of character should we gonna be? What is her personality and story? So at the time, I asked for Ashley, so do you have any can I get more information about her? And then she sent me all the story and background, her personality, her lines, and then also I got amazing playlist from her, the music playlist that is she's imagining for her theme, and that was amazing. And then I was sculpting her face and her different expressions, and that was really amazing. Very, very smooth process.
I gotta give full credit to Brett Marting, the concept artist, for the playlist idea. Because once we started discussing, he was like, what music evokes her? And as I was describing Catalyst, he came up with some of his own ideas, which are still in my Spotify. They're really good. And we just added on to that. It's what is the feeling? How how do we feel about Catalyst? What music would she listen to? So that was full credit to Brett on that one.
We have to start playing that during my sessions, if that's all right.
Perfect.
Oh my God, that'd be amazing. Yeah, I was gonna say Meli's eyes just lit up when you talked about a playlist, and I'm like, oh, you definitely have to release that. Oh my God, I would actually love if you released a playlist for each legend and what they listen to as they're dropping out of the dropship. That would be amazing.
That would be so much fun.
Ashley, you worked with, well, I think the entire team worked with GLAD, but you specifically wrote Catalyst's backstory. So can you tell me what that process was like working with GLAD to develop her story?
Yeah, for sure. So early on, it was internal at Respawn. It was, like I said, it was the original designers, the artists, and the writer, me, getting together to talk about what we wanted the character to be. And actually the original idea for the character as a techno witch was suggested by a designer on the team, a former designer on the team who's a trans woman. So that was something we really attached to. We really liked the idea of like the techno witch concept. So we had trans developers represented very early on in the process, but then we also wanted to have consultation as we started working on things and getting more detailed into her lines, because no one group is a monolith. Different people are going to have different opinions on things. So we wanted to make sure, like, hey, we're keeping an eye out for we not misrepresenting anything or saying something that's like, that actually means this and you didn't know. So GLAD was really essential when we got to the point where we said, okay, Catalyst is really well developed at this point. We're comfortable with who she is as a person and her backstory and personality. Let's get this checked out. Let's see if we're falling in any pitfalls, stepping on any landmines or anything like that. And they were really helpful with that, and also educating the team on trans representation in media, the history of trans representation in media, so we could get a better view of not just what we were working on, but the landscape that we were walking into. So they were really helpful going over the content that we created, both the dialogue and Brett and Mirim's work on the art side. And yeah, it was a really good back and forth relationship of them giving us information, but also checking on what we were working on as we were developing.
Yeah, so I want to ask, I guess, to the entire panel, so why is it important to include characters like Catalyst in games like Apex?
I know it's something that we on the Apex team really care about, is creating this sense of this game takes place in the future of our world, and we want to represent the diversity of the world we see today and our hopes for what that could look like in the future. So we want to show a very diverse cast, and then as creatives also, that's just more interesting to show characters with a lot of different experiences and identities and like lives, like unique among the entire cast. So it was really important to us early on to say, okay, we want to bring this to the cast. This is something we haven't explored yet, and we have an opportunity here, and we really want to bring that to create an even more colorful cast of characters.
Yeah, I think, whether we like it or not, we still live in this world where the media we consume and the stories that we engage with aren't always reflective of the actual world that we live in and the people that are in that world. And oftentimes, there are people who still somehow in current year think that, the inclusion of more women in our stories, more people of color in our stories, more trans and non-binary folks is somehow a political statement versus just like creating stories that actually look like the real world. And I think that representation is really important. People need a model to look to, people, examples of what they can do with their lives and what they can aspire to. And so much of our culture engages with storytelling, whether it's live action televisions or movies or anime or comic books. And it's so important to see examples of people who are like us, to get a sense of like what the world could be for us. And I think that, I hope that we continue to push forward and do even better, not just with creating awesome, authentic characters in the stories themselves, but also creating opportunities for people from marginalized groups so that we can actually have not just, it's one thing to see a character that looks or sounds like you on a fantasy game or a cartoon, but it's a whole other level to see an actual living, breathing human being that reminds you of yourself out there thriving and serving as that blueprint or that model so that you can say, oh, that's something that I can do, and that's kind of a blueprint that I can follow. I hope in some small way that the work that I'm doing now as Catalyst, as well as everything else that I have done before and do in the future, can be a jumping off point for someone to come after me and do it way better.
Also, something that I'm proud of how Apex is doing, and I'm very happy about, is like we are not really making variety of character for sake of making variety of character. Like Apex always trying to whole team is trying to make the character that actually tell their story. Like a sexuality or gender is their part of their personality or themselves, but it's not everything that we want to say. And then I'm very happy about that. They have a way more colored stories.
I'm actually curious, what is your favorite line as Catalyst?
My favorite lines are the mean ones. My favorite lines are the mean ones.
Do tell.
Oh gosh, I'm always gonna forget. There's one line that my community, because I stream a fair bit, remembers, and I don't. That was the hardest line we recorded, and it's gonna slip my mind, but I'll shout it out and interrupt people later. I think the most meaningful line for me was the line that they announced me with, which was "Everyone deserves a chance to rise." That I connected with a lot as somebody who has, had a lot of twists and turns in trying to build a career and hasn't always felt like people have given me the shots that I felt like I was seeing literally everyone around me getting, and people expressing to my face their confusion about what to do with someone with my voice and where I fit into the work that I was doing kind of in the first couple of years of my career. And so that was very powerful to me to be a part of a story this big and this meaningful, and especially to get announced with "Everyone deserves a chance to rise" felt like it was speaking directly to me. That said, in terms of favorites, I am a big fan of "Oh, that wasn't a hex. You're just not very good." It's probably my favorite line to spam at people, although I'm usually the one dying.
I'm very happy to hear that's your favorite. I like that one.
I mean, Respawn has obviously put a ton of care into the creation of their legends, which, congratulations, you guys do an amazing job. And we have such a unique roster. I mean, Bloodhound being non-binary, which was announced from the start, Gibraltar and Valkyrie being gay icons, and Loba being a very openly bisexual woman, and Seer also being pansexual, which you don't really see very often. And it's honestly such a great spectrum that really does reflect the world that we live in. I'm very curious, what do you want other developers to learn from your work on inclusivity and diversity and just bringing that whole spectrum of the world to life in video games?
I think kind of going forward for a long time, my, North Star in my advocacy was making sure that we saw characters cast appropriately, so that we had people from marginalized groups given the opportunity to tell their own stories, and to be a part of that process, to add that much very needed authenticity to the characters that we're creating in the stories that we tell, but also to give people from marginalized groups the opportunity to profit and benefit from the telling of their stories, which hasn't traditionally been afforded to queer folks or actors of color in the past, and so the next step of that is to focus, as much as we focus on the characters themselves and creating these really amazing characters, also making sure that we're highlighting the creators behind them, and making sure that we're creating opportunities for people, as artists, as developers, as writers, as actors like myself, and highlighting and showcasing people from marginalized groups that represent that character thriving and being a part of the process, so that we can be that, like I said earlier, so that we can be that blueprint for everyone that comes after us. I think that's as much, if not more important, is to show actual examples of real human beings thriving in this world and showing that we're on the level, and that just like anybody else, we can dedicate and spend time learning the craft and developing the resolve and the drive and the toolkit, and the work ethic, and getting to a place where we're right there on the level doing the same great work and should be getting the same shots as everybody else. Most of us, I can at least speak for actors, most of us just want a chance to try. And that's what, made an opportunity like Catalyst so incredible. And I hope that more and more studios follow that example.
Thank you all so much for your valuable insight. And can I just say, I'm so happy that this panel was all women. Like, I love this.
Yay!
It's awesome on so many different levels. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today. And it was so lovely having you all here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hear that bell? It's the witching hour. Greetings from the dark side of the moon.